Chapter 2. Skirmish. In a sector near the vicinity of the asteroid Pazun, a blazing red light sprawling across the monitor screen was the last spectacle that greeted the pilot of the Jim 3. Far in its wake, a single mobile suit bearing an enormous electronic equipment container lurked unnoticed. Motionless, it seemed like a derelict, devoid of a pilot, but this mobile suit known as an A.E.U.G Nero was all ears to the various pulses of the cosmos, meticulously probing its surroundings with unseen hands in the gaps of silence. The A.E.U.G Nero's electronic warfare officer, scrunched in a dark, cramped cockpit, impassively stared at his tactical control display. Light from the display painted his helmet visor a spectral rainbow. From the display, one by one, the green luminescent dots indicating friendly units began to fade away. Now, the last friendly dot vanished, leaving only 2 red luminescent dots marking enemy units. Wiped out then. Not even 5 minutes, muttered a voice. Time to make our exit? The pilot questioned, his words barely above a whisper. Like a giant's corpse, the thrusters at the back of the A.E.U.G Nero began to glow a pale firefly-like blue. Shit, they've noticed us. The 2 red dots on the display accelerated, heading directly toward their own suits. The A.E.U.G Nero's pilot, following standard evasion protocol, spun the craft using AMBAC and initiated escape maneuvers. From behind, a barrage of red beams came rushing in, their numbers increasing with each passing moment. This is bad, the pilot murmured as the electronic warfare officer's gaze picked a command from an array of options on the display. The A.E.U.G Neros. Databank released a torrent of tactical data, translated from the evolved ADA-F programming language, itself derived from ADA. The data has been transferred to the pods. Okay, here we go. The pilot thumped a switch on the right side of his console. 4 data pods separated from the center of the A.E.U.G Nero's backpack, disappearing into the void with a soft hiss of air escaping. In that instant, 2 streaks of red light pierced from the Nero's back to its belly, transforming into a pale blue explosion. The 2 mobile suits responsible for the red streaks, existing only as sources of pink light from their mono eyes, were briefly illuminated by the explosion, revealing their dull blue bodies against the black velvet backdrop of space. An electronic reconnaissance unit. New model, I presume. They've probably launched their data pods, stated Cray of the ZQ-1 to his wingman offshore as they flew in tandem. Poor guys in the gym, thrown into combat ahead of us. Used as bait for aggressive reconnaissance, I guess, offshore remarked. In the name of efficiency, individual lives are disregarded. This is war. Remember it well? Cray lectured. With no real combat experience, offshore could only nod in agreement to his superior's words. The fact that the beams he'd launched had taken human lives had yet to sink in. It felt strangely unreal. The difference between a sporting match and the reality of war was something he hadn't yet learned to distinguish. In low Earth orbit, the floating dock and communication station, known as Penta, hung in space. It was affectionately named for its pentagonal shape. 5 cylindrical structures radiated outward from its cylindrical central core, each attached to a 2-kilometer-long spacecraft mooring boom that served as a pier. The station was typically home to the main fleet of the Earth Federation. The 5 vessels of the Task Force Alpha rested at the end of these mooring booms, undergoing their final preparations. The majority of the task force's crew, as well as equipment such as mobile suits, were due to be loaded here. Rio Roots was quite taken aback when suddenly assigned to a combat unit. The training sergeant had told them that their experimental mobile suit squad served as excellent guinea pigs for gathering data on the safety and maneuverability of the new mobile suits, all for the pilots of the combat unit. However, the base commander had told him that he would be the pilot of the new advanced mobile suit. The question of why was I chosen crossed his mind, but his characteristic overconfidence quickly swept it away. Assignment to a combat unit resulted in Roots gaining the rank of ensign. Although he was promoted to the rank of petty officer second class, one must be an officer to become a mobile suit pilot. Therefore, he would be treated as an officer. To be precise, he was a petty officer acting as an ensign, but there was no practical difference. This system is known as battlefield commissioning. Upon arriving at Penta from Earth via shuttle, Roots searched for the room labeled with his assigned unit's name. When he told the microphone of the guidance terminal located at key points in Penta, Task Force Alpha, Mobile Suit Squadron, Briefing Room, his current location was displayed. A yellow line, representing the shortest route to his destination, extended over the 3D holographic map displayed on the screen. When the display finished, a synthetic female voice asked, "Would you like a printout?" "No, thank you," Rio replied, hastening towards the room. Behind him, he heard the machine's voice dutifully saying thank you very much. "I'm Lieutenant Stoll Mannings, the commander of the Mobile Suit Squadron for Task Force Alpha. Everyone, please take your seats." A man who climbed the podium addressed the roomful of mobile suit pilots with a clear, loud voice. His gaze was sharp, and his hair was neatly trimmed. His tightly fitted pilot suit and his upright posture oozed a meticulous military aura. Rio spotted his classmate Shin Crypt in the briefing room and took a seat next to him. "Hey, Shin, what do you think of that old man?" "He's a tough one to handle. He reeks of military stiffness. I like him." "You're into guys now?" Shin asked, arching an eyebrow. "Idiot. I mean, he's a worthy opponent to punch." "Those types have always been my specialty." Their whispered conversation seemed to reach Mannings. When Rio looked straight ahead, he met Manning's glaring gaze. Rio decided it would be best to quiet down, reading the room. Such judgment was a natural talent of this cheeky boy. Silence. "I will now explain the operation overview." As Mannings began the briefing with an attitude reminiscent of a mean-spirited foreign language teacher, the door at the front of the briefing room opened. A hulking pilot stood dumbfounded. I'm sorry," he stammered, closing the door and trying to make his way to another. "Are you in this unit?" Mannings asked, to which the man nodded affirmatively. "Then sit down quickly." Yes, but there's no seat." He looked around the room. "Then sit on the floor. Your rank and name, now." Mannings was clearly annoyed by the giant man's slow movements. "Ensign Tex West, sir." Mannings glanced at the roster on the podium and said, "Ah," a Karaba veteran in a deflated tone. At the mention of Karaba, snickers leaked from the other pilots. Karaba was the support organization for A.E.U.G on Earth during the Grips War. As such, their activities were largely limited to within the Earth's atmosphere. What was to be faced by the Task Force Alpha was space combat. What could a man who had only crawled around on the ground do in the vast expanse of space? This sentiment was what made the pilots laugh. Once West plopped down on the floor at the front, Mannings regained his composure and started the mission briefing. The screen in the briefing room projected the asteroid Pazoon and its orbit moving a day apart. A month ago, Pro-Titans members in the Instructor Corps stationed in Pazoon rebelled and occupied it. They are moving Pazoon via nuclear pulse propulsion and currently have it stationed at L4. Their intentions are unclear, but it is likely an anti-A.E.U.G appeal to the Earth Federation government. Based on their declarations, it's unlikely they will crash Pazoon into Earth. The image on the screen behind him changed. This is a week ago when the 127th Squadron stationed at Side 2, sent for forced reconnaissance to Pazoon, was annihilated. Unfortunately, only one data pod could be recovered. On the screen, 2 glowing red points approached 6 green ones, eliminating them one after another. The movements of each mobile suit were vividly depicted through polygonal processing in a window opened on the right side of the screen. The images being displayed painted a vivid, albeit grim, picture of the task ahead. It was evident from the footage that the enemy they were about to face was formidable and had the capacity to obliterate an entire squadron. The room fell into a tense silence as the pilots processed this information, the weight of their task becoming all too real. Destroyed. Time: 0 hours, 4 minutes, 35 seconds, 51 milliseconds. The image froze where the last green glowing point vanished. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. You've got to be kidding! Roots leaned forward and exclaimed. It seemed the other pilots shared his sentiments, as several of them nodded in agreement. It would be good if it were a joke, but unfortunately, this is the truth. I want each of you to engrave this in your minds. This is the power of the enemy we must confront, Manning said. The image behind Manning's was split into 6, replaying the movements of the mobile suits they just saw. They were the data suppliers for our IMPC system, as you all know. Therefore, they have the advantage of understanding our IMPC data. But there is a silver lining. Miraculously, a member of the instructor corps who was sent back to Earth managed to bring back their latest data for our IMPC system. So, we're not going to be wiped out like the squad we just saw, right? Roots cracked a joke. At this point, no one could have anticipated the impending severity of the data. The mission briefing then moved on to specific tactical instructions and lasted for 3 hours. At 0300 Earth Standard Time, Task Force Alpha will depart from Penta. All personnel are to board their designated ships by 2200. Dismissed. At 0300 Earth Standard Time, 5 space vessels centered around the Pegasus 3 set off from Penta, carrying mobile suits and their pilots, trailing tails of blue-white propellant light. Damn, the old man is with us, Roots commented. After meeting the crew of the Pegasus 3, he was killing time in the dining area with Crypt, sucking on tubes of coffee. No helping it. It's the flagship of the fleet. It's natural that the mobile suit squadron commander is on board, Crypt responded. But why are you the only one treated as a Lieutenant J? I'm the commander of the FAZ squadron. You don't have any subordinates because you're directly under the squadron commander, Crypt explained. I'm not convinced. Swap places with me. Roots was not pleased with Crypt being treated as a rank higher. That's the military for you, Crypt said. Guess so, Roots responded, just as the large figure of West hurried over. He too had been assigned to the same ship as a pilot for the Zeta Plus. Both of you, Lieutenant Manning's, is starting training. He wants us to gather at the mobile suit pilot pit immediately, West relayed. Training? I haven't even sorted out my personal belongings yet. Tell that to Lieutenant Manning's, Roots waved dismissively. But, God, you're so slow. No, but just tell him. Roots impatiently threw his coffee tube at West. However, it hit a man walking behind West straight in the face. It was Manning's. After a moment's glance at the dropped tube, he spoke. If you think sorting out your belongings is more important than your life, you don't have to participate in the training. But if you don't want to end up like this, he lifted his trouser leg to reveal a large, ugly scar. His leg, though appearing human due to artificial organic parts, was visibly prosthetic to Roots. And the others. I lost it in the 1-year war. It was the price of my naivety. Thanks to training, it was just my leg. What about you? It seems the ensign here has more confidence than I do, but I hope he doesn't drag others down with him. Manning's words, stemming from his own experience, weighed heavily on Roots. You lost it because of your mistake. I'll show you I'm better. Shin, let's go. Unable to hide his agitation, Roots stormed out of the dining area. Arrogant kid. If you weren't suited for the S Gundam, I would strangle you right now, Manning's thought as he watched Roots leave. If new types were all like this, he felt he would get a headache. The terrifying thought that these might be true new types crossed his mind, causing him to frown. While conducting mobile suit familiarization and tactical training, the fleet reached the visible area of Pazun. Naturally, this movement was also detected by the new decides. Enemy ship types: Argama class ×1, Salamis, Kai class ×5, relative strength 1 to 0.987. We've confirmed 5 Federation ships, a young operator reported to COD. Work was ongoing around the clock at Pazun to ensure full preparedness, but there was still some tightening up to do. At this critical juncture, can you get the commander's data? I'll try, but it may be a bit outdated. We're disconnected from the Federation's main computer link, the operator responded. Profile. Ship name: Argama class, Pegasus 3. Captain: Eaton F. Heathrow. Rank: Lieutenant Commander. Evaluation: Green. For evaluations during enrollment at the Advanced Officer School and previous service appraisals, please refer to File 0083-014863. A fledgling straight from the Senior Officers Academy. He can probably only manage textbook attacks. If the captain is commanding the fleet, then it's either a temporary fleet or a decoy. Can you figure out the mobile suit squad's commander? Since it's a new ship, we don't have any data. We also don't have data on the mobile suit forces. All right. Well, they shouldn't have any experienced operators for something like this. A mobile suit squad alone should be enough. Let Offshore's team handle it. A diversionary attack is all we need. At COD's command, Offshore's first assault team started to prepare for departure in Pazun's mobile suit hangar. The Zeonic-Corps equipment was swapped out for the Type 2 long-range sniper, a long-range artillery type. Josh Offshore, first assault team, heading out. The Zeonic-Corps fell into formation and headed toward Task Force Alpha. Just buy us some time. Just give them a little sting, that's all. Don't overdo it. COD's voice echoed in the cockpit. The blushing Offshore smiled inside his helmet. He liked being cared for by others. Lieutenant Crypt. Shin Crypt. To the mobile suite deck. At 0600 hours, the speaker next to his ear suddenly roared to life. A terrible wake-up call, Crypt said as he tousled his unkempt hair. He unbuckled his bed's restraint belt and pulled his body away from the Velcro sheets. He quickly changed from his shipwork uniform into his pilot suit and rushed to the mobile suite deck's pilot pit. Manning was already there, looking somewhat tense. Lieutenant Crypt, this is a real battle, Manning bluntly informed him. What's the target? Asked Crypt timidly, tense from the news of live combat. Right now, our fleet has entered the visible range of Pazun and mobile suits. From Pazun has come out to intercept. Considering the amount of propellant, their mobile suits can't get close to our fleet from this distance. They are probably planning long-range sniping. Firing our ship's guns or missiles now would be a waste since the target is too small. That's why it's your FAS team's turn. You have high firepower and long-range capabilities. Understood. His voice was a bit high-pitched. Don't push yourself. Don't rush for results. Crypt saluted and headed to the hangar, sliding into the cockpit of the FAS. When he switched on the laser communication monitor, the face of Lieutenant Grissom, a fellow pilot, appeared on the 360-degree monitor window. He was also a cohort from the experimental squadron. Wakey, wakey. Yeah, I'm fully awake. Today is a real battle. It's different from the training we've had until yesterday. What about Aldrin? He's on standby. He's on backup. Okay. Crypt switched the monitor to the Pegasus 3's control room. All right, FAS team, let's go. 2 FASs, each armed with a massive beam weapon called a hyper-mega cannon, launched from the 2 electromagnetic catapults on the Pegasus. The moment he entered the firing preparation area, Crypt felt an unpleasant sensation. It was as if there was a killing intent. At that moment, a red light, attacked him from the front, reflecting off tiny space dust. Evade. Extend sensors to maximum range. Crypt called out as he reversed his acceleration and moved his unit out of the predicted beam diameter, breaking the radio silence to alert Grissom. Do you know where they're shooting from? As he spoke, Crypt focused on the data in the window opened at the front of the 360-degree monitor. The window was always located at the right corner of his field of vision, synchronized with the movement of the linear seat. He could see 4 faint red dots. There are 4 within range. There might be more. Be careful. Our effective range is longer. That one just now was a bluff, Grissom replied calmly. All right, Grissom. After I fire once, adjust within 5 degrees and fire. Crypt's phase aimed and fired its hyper-mega cannon. A clear blue light gushed from the muzzle, becoming a solid beam of light traveling at an incredible speed, getting absorbed into the pitch-black darkness. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Damn it, I missed. Grissom's machine immediately corrected the firing line of Crypt's machine and fired. The hyper-mega cannon takes a while to charge, which is a drawback, but the alternating firing operation of the 2 machines was sufficient to cover this weakness, if not completely. The most powerful beam among the mobile suits on board the Pegasus was fired repeatedly in a barrage. What's this beam? Is it ship gunfire? Offshore could not hide his surprise at the blue light streak that flew overhead. The effect radius of that beam made it seem like it was from a battleship's main gun. It's impossible for a battleship to snipe a single mobile suit from a long distance. However, this beam was clearly aimed for precision shooting, and the shooting point changed significantly. There were 2 conclusions. Either the enemy had a large mobile armor, or a mobile suit capable of operating heavy firepower. So, they're also planning a long-distance artillery battle. However, even in this era, combat on the order of tens of thousands of kilometers was still not assured. Red and blue beams crisscrossed in space, and each time space dust sparkled, producing this dangerous show. The artillery battle of firing and dodging across a vast distance for mobile suits could not deliver a decisive blow to either side. Weapon. Generator output decrease. Recognize key to changing the main weapon. Continued usage carries an 89.657889% probability of damage to the unit. Potential damage options expected during continued usage are as outlined in the following file. Damn, I'm out of ammo. Crypt cursed at the emergency warning display on the window. Me too, Grissom replied. Should we request backup from Aldrin? No, it doesn't seem to be necessary. The search data on the monitor indicated that there were no enemies within effective range. They had withdrawn. Meanwhile, Offshore had received an encrypted message from COD saying, "The flower bed has been tended to," and led his unit back to Pazoon. He was satisfied that his stall tactic, the task of buying time that had been assigned to him, had been successful.